Hi, this is Dan and Lexi from Dan Schultz Outdoors, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers.
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beasley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
I'm Jay. Let's go. From Jay's Way, keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Collin, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shug here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
Ethan here, the Avid Outdoorsy guy, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Kylan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Tonight's episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small-batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show. My name is Dennis, also known as CanoeHound, and if this is your first time tuning in, thank you very much for joining us with your presence. You know what? If you're watching after the fact, you know what? Thanks for watching after the fact. That's always a good thing as well. Let's see here. We're live here every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m., but just as a little public service announcement, next week, we're not going to have a show, unfortunately. I am getting out doing a little bit of winter camping this weekend, and it's not going to allow me enough time to actually put together a show properly. So we will be returning on February the 14th when, which of course, you know, is Valentine's Day. And we're going to be doing a backcountry couple special on that weekend. So tune back in on February the 14th, and we will have a fun evening then, of course. Let's see here, just to get through a few announcements and such, as we always do while the chat over there populates. For those of you that may have missed last week's show, I featured Marty Morissette. He's a YouTuber, and he is also a social media guru when it comes to backcountry stuff. We talked a lot about his channel, how he became an outdoorsman the way that he is, And we also talked a lot about winter camping and things of that sort. If you missed the episode, it was a really fun evening. So you know what? By all means, please go back into our past episodes playlist and you can check that out and get yourself all caught up. And then, of course, we have our other 121 episodes from the last last 3.5 seasons on there as well. So if you missed anything and you need to do a little bit of binge watching, feel free to tune into some of our shows there. Been mentioning over the last couple of weeks there's we're coming up to show season. There's quite a few shows that are going to be happening, all over the place, all these outdoor events. Actually, it's just plain old trade show season. The boat show in Toronto just finished up or wrapped up here a day or two ago. And I think that's kind of the kickoff to the season for the outdoor adventuring type of thing, right? But this we got February 24th and 26th is the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show. Now I mentioned that because a lot of people that you've seen here on Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show will actually be doing presentations there. Saturday and Sunday being sort of the hot times to be able to be there. So if anybody was planning on going there, make sure you can get there on a Saturday or Sunday, or if you can't do Saturday or Sunday, they're also open on the Friday as well. But just to kind of outline a few people that you can go there and watch presentations of, Friends of Temagami will be presenting on Friday and Saturday of the weekend. Kevin Callan, Brad and Leah Jennings, Sean Rowley, David Bain, and of course myself, and we'll be presenting on Saturday. Camper Christina, who's on the show tonight, will be presenting on Saturday and Sunday, so she's doing double duty there. Of course, Hap Wilson will be there doing presentations on Friday and Sunday. And lastly, you know what? One of the big draws for the show, he seems to be a favorite of everybody's, and that would be Les Stroud on the main stage on Saturday. So by all means, you know what? It's going to be a fun Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show. I think this one's going to be a little more back to normal than last year's show, which was quite small and maybe a little underattended just because of the pandemic and all that threw at us. But people seem to be coming out of their shells a little bit more. So by all means, get on out there, come on by. You'll find all kinds of personalities there at the show, more than willing to stop, take a picture, say hi, share advice, whatever it might be. So please do come on out and meet all kinds of great people. Really quick here, as I always do every week, I need to do a quick shout out to my channel members, because my channel members are really what make this channel tick. They really help out financially. I was just going through my channel member list here yesterday, and I noticed that I've got some channel members that have been around, or channel members now, for like over 30 months. You know what? You guys know who you are. And even to those of you that are just new to being a member and, anywhere in between, thank you very much. Your support is so greatly appreciated. It really means a lot, and it makes a big difference with the show here. So I'm just going to let your names drift across at the bottom, because you do deserve recognition, and thank you very much. Right. Just noticing I got a lot of blue going on here today. That's cool. Blue is one of my favorite colors. Let's see here. Okay, I mentioned about the show next week. You know what? Birthday wishes. You know what? 9 months ago, around this time every year for the last bunch of years, must have been a really cold time of year, because we have a lot of birthday wishes to get through today. First, a longtime subscriber and camping buddy, Dan Mailot. He turned 60 today. Happy birthday to you, Dan. From the Ontario camping couple, happy birthday to Sabrina. She's celebrating her 29th birthday again. So happy birthday to you, Sabrina. Mike from Badger Paddles is celebrating a birthday today. Happy birthday, Mike. Some past guests, Justin Barber, Jim Baird, John Van Berger, they're all celebrating birthdays this week. And lastly, from Kid Products, who are one of our sponsors here on the show, Keith Park. He's the K in Kid. He's getting old again. Happy birthday to you, Keith. Looking forward to getting out and doing a bit of winter camping with you guys this weekend. So I hope you're going to get your all your warm stuff on, because I'm understanding it's going to be really cold up north. So we'll get through that. Anyways, we're going to clear this. And then, of course, you know what? Our coffee sponsors of the week. We got Kenny P and iTime. Thanks for your coffee contribution for Canoe Hound. Always goes well on the show. I've given up drinking beer, I think, on the show. So, yeah. We keep this ship going straight, right? Keep the beer for later. Let's see if anybody has any well wishes, birthdays, anniversaries, engagements. Heck, you might even find a new divorce, something worth announcing. You know what? Send me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. We'll be sure to get that on screen here for you and let everybody know that you're celebrating something that is fun. Let's see here. What do we got? I think, we've gotten through pretty much everything, but you know what? We do have an exciting show lined up for you tonight. And as usual, our audience participation from all of you here in the chat is totally welcome. The one thing that I need you to do, though, if you're posting a question in the chat that you would like me to get up on screen here, please put the word question in capital letters before that question. It just makes it easier for me to notice. I could pop a star at it and I might be able to pop it into the chat anytime throughout the show here. But also after the 8 o'clock break, as usual, I'm going to put the invitation out there. And if any of you take the invitation to join us on panel for a quick question, story, or comment, by all means, please do join us. It makes the show a little more lively. And that's pretty much going to be about it, right? One last thing. We are having a swag giveaway tonight, courtesy of Salis Marine clothing. They donated a brand new PFD, a nice Salis PFD. So you know what? A little more details when the swag giveaway comes just after the 8 o'clock hour. So you'll want to make sure you stick around and possibly have a chance to win that. So that'll be taken care of around 8 o'clock. So now, without further ado, let's get into tonight's topic. You know what? As we think about putting away the snow shovels and pulling out our canoe paddles, we should be doing so with safety in mind. You know what? Nobody ever wants to go out there and experience any sort of tragedy when it comes to backcountry paddling. Heck, for even front country paddling, it could be in a local creek or river. You always have to keep safety in mind because we all want to go home to our loved ones and we all want our loved ones to come home to us, right? This past week, Camper Christina was awarded a recognition award for safety on the water at the Canadian Safe Boating Council Awards, and it really triggered the whole idea of putting on this show. So first person I'm going to bring up here is Christina. We are joined by 3 different individuals, but Christina, before I got everybody up, I just wanted to congratulate you with your life jacket on, being the recipient. There you go. On being the recipient of such a, in my opinion, a prestigious award. You've really been acknowledged for something great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very humbled by the award. I was really, really happy to receive it, and very honored.
That's awesome. Awesome. I'm gonna introduce our other 2 panelists here, and then we're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into talking about the do's, the don'ts, the whys, the why nots, and the whole shamil. Right? Let's see if we can make people wear their life jackets. Right? Even at home, you might slip and fall in the bathtub. Right? Let's see here. Next person I'd like to bring up on panel is an advocate who's spearheading the push to make wearing PFDs mandatory on small pleasure craft under 6 meters. He's with the Provincial Marine ATV Coordinator from the OPP Highway Safety Division. Please welcome Sergeant Dave Moffat. How you doing, Dave?
I'm great. Thanks, Dennis. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Dave.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem. Happy to be here.
You know what? Happy to have you, man. Happy to have you. And my pages are sticking together. I don't know why. Fresh paper, I guess. Lastly, we have a woman who wears many hats, and we talked about those many hats in the green room earlier. She's an executive director with Paddle Canada and a director for the Canadian Safe Boating Council. Please welcome Michelle McShane. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Hi,
Good,
Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Wow. So I think we got ourselves a really cool panel here, and it's going to be a fun evening talking about some stuff that should be not taken too lightly. Really quickly, we'll start with Christina because I want to find out a bit more about this award. Christina, when did you find out you were receiving this, and what's behind receiving this award?
Well, in November, I believe it was sometime in November, I saw a post that was put up by Salis Marine my people. And it was about safety, voting safety awards, and saying how you could nominate people and stuff like that. So I shared it. I sent it to a few people, and I guess a bunch of people sent in nominations. There was a form to fill out. The form wasn't working, so they just said send an email. So I guess a bunch of people emailed in. They said they got over 10 nominations for me, and promote, just because I promote safety on the water. I was wearing my PFD in my videos and in my courses. And early December, I got a phone call from Brenda, who is with the CBSA, CSB. I always call it the wrong, CSBC, Canadian Safe Boating Committee Council. And she called and she said, I want to tell you, you won an award, and it's a special recognition award for promoting safety on the water. And I was like elated. And I said, oh my God, that's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And I just happened to be on a show that next night. And I was like, can I tell people? And they're like, no, you can't tell anybody. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we had the ceremony was a week ago Sunday at the Yacht Club in Toronto. And I was invited with a guest. I brought my friend Gail, who used to run the We Get Outside Twitter chat. Who's a great influence on me and also a strong advocate of safety on the water. And she came with me. We had a beautiful dinner, and I got to meet all these great people. And the first thing that happened was I walked in the door and I was approached by an OPP officer, fully dressed in uniform, and came up to me and said, are you Christina? And I was like, oh shit. Everybody else was upstairs. I didn't know OPP were going to be there. I didn't really know much about anybody else who was coming. So I'll let you tell the rest of that story, Dave. But it was really cool, and I met a lot of really cool people, and they made a presentation about me, and it was awesome. It was a really, really fun night. I met a lot of people who are huge promoters of safety on the water, and it was just great to be around such positive energy.
That's awesome. And you know what, Christina, very well deserving too, because I see it. I'm sure a lot of people that are in the chat and anybody that knows you or watches your videos know how much you actually give to this community as far as your teachings with your courses that you've put together through Udemy, all the things that you talk about, your presentations and stuff like that. You really are an advocate for this stuff. And whether, you talk, like you don't necessarily talk about it all the time, but just through the presence of wearing your jacket like you're doing right now, right? It's one of those things that very well deserving. I applaud you. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
Did you show the plaque yet? Did I miss that?
No, I didn't.
Hold it up. Show that thing off. That's awesome. There we go. Look at this.
Yeah. I didn't even know I was getting this. I was pretty stoked about that, except it doesn't say camper. Well, it does say camp. It doesn't say Camper Christina anywhere, but it's got my name on it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Your name's really Christina, right? So that's yeah.
I know. But...
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, okay. So, Dave, what can you tell us about yourself? There's a reason why we brought you up onto the show. What can you tell us about yourself? What's your background?
Well, my background is I've been with the OPP 28 years, coming into my 28th year, I guess. Prior to that, I was a high school teacher for 4.5 years, and I jumped ship thinking I'll try this job, and I've never left. And in 2000, I became a Marine officer. In 2001, I became a Marine instructor, and I've been Marine passionate for my whole career. And back in 2018 was when I was able to move into the position I am now as the provincial Marine coordinator for the OPP because the previous coordinator retired. So it was a perfect job for me, and it's been a fantastic ride so far.
Awesome. And we'll ask Michelle the same thing. So I introduced you as the woman wearing many hats. She only has one official one that has the crest on it, but she has an imaginary hat that she's going to be putting on. Tell us a bit about yourself, Michelle, and the positions you hold.
With no hat. I've been canoeing and camping since I was 12 years old. Knew that I probably needed a job that was going to keep me outside and in boats. So I spent a lot of years in doing some guiding and outdoor education. Got into outdoor retail after a while. And towards the end of 2019, my timing was really good because I got out of retail and got into remote work, working from home, when the position of the executive director of Paddle Canada came open. So I accepted that position, and by proxy, the chair of the Canadian Safe Boating Council at the time approached me. I didn't know I was being interviewed. I thought maybe he was just recruiting me. I guess it was a recruitment/interview. And I was invited to join the Canadian Safe Boating Council as a director. I say by proxy of the position I held with Paddle Canada, but it's been a very warm and welcoming group. And I think they started liking me for who I was and not who I represented. And so here I am.
There you go. Yeah. So you must be good at what you're doing there if they're tugging at both arms, right? So that's good. That's good. So Dave, I wanted to ask, what are the current laws in Ontario or Canada, for that matter, for wearing PFDs? Where do we stand with that right now?
So the current laws are, if you're on a vessel, you need to have a PFD, and the current laws are that no one has to wear them at all. But the interesting thing is it has to be a vessel. So a vessel is defined as something that you use for navigation. So if you're going from point A to point B, that's a vessel, no matter what it is. It could be a picnic table with a couple guys paddling on it. That's a vessel. So if, I compare it to, you have a couple kids that are at the end of your dock, they're on the canoe, they're gunnel bobbing, or they're flipping it over, or, an SUP, just using it as a toy. That's exactly what it is, a toy. There's no carriage requirements for that. But as soon as you take that toy and travel to the next cottage, that's now a vessel. So there's carriage requirements. So, and because of that, some people really don't know the laws, and they don't know they on a stand-up paddleboard is our worst offenders. They don't have life jackets and whistles, and if you're not wearing it, then it's just throw line. So there's a lot of different rules for all the different vessels.
Mm-hmm. And what's someone require, like when it comes to kayaks, canoes, paddle boards, maybe like dinghies? Because I guess one of the things now that's getting to be popular are these, what are they called, float dinghies or something? There's a term for it, but anyways, it's like a rubber dinghy essentially. Yep. That
it's an inflatable.
Yeah, it's an inflatable.
Yep.
So what is required to legally bring on a canoe with you, or we'll say canoe for just topic's sake, but all of these.
So a canoe, you are required to have a life jacket for everybody on board, a sounding device of some sort. So a keyless whistle is usually what people have, like a Fox 40. Mm-hmm. A throw line, 15 meters of buoyant heaving line, it's called, and a paddle, obviously, if you're in the canoe. And because all different vessels, if you have a sit-on-top kayak, there's nowhere for the water to go, but in a canoe there is. And if you put water in that canoe, it can capsize. So therefore, you need a bailing bucket. On a sit-on-top kayak, if water goes on top, it's not going to capsize. So therefore, you don't need a bailing bucket. There's different rules for different vessels out there. Like a sit-on-top kayak or a kayak, there's different carriage requirements if you actually wear your life jacket. So a sit-on-top kayak, for me, I own one of those. If I'm wearing my life jacket, all I need is my whistle and my paddle, and that's it. If you're not wearing your life jacket, then you need to throw a line. If water can get inside, you need a bailing bucket, etc. So there's different rules. And if you're not sure, the Transport Canada website has so much great information, like the Safe Boating Guide that you can download, and that will give you all the information you need for any vessel you own.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just wonder why are these laws for these particular devices so vague? Like, why do they say you have to have a life jacket, but you don't have to be wearing it? right? Which is something that I guess is trying to be changed. But why has it been so vague? Why do they? There's always been that the danger hasn't changed.
Well, I think what has changed is the type of vessels that are out there now.
Right.
You know, Canada Shipping Act it started a long time ago where, you know, when the first act that came out, it talked about scurvy, right? And that's how old that act is. So in 2001, they revamped it and changed laws a bit. The act now still hasn't kind of accounted for electric propulsion, so there's still more stuff to go. And I really truly believe every time when they revamp things, they kind of look at the stats, they look at what kind of vessels are out there and try to incorporate everything. But as you and I know, the technology out there is so quick and so vast that it's hard to keep up on that. So why is it vague? I'm just thinking that the number of people that were enjoying the outdoors and in the paddle industry and the small vessel industry is not as vast now. Like the pandemic just exploded the boating population. And it's unreal how many people are out there right now.
And that's for both motorized and non-motorized, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, Michelle, actually 2 questions for you. What is Paddle Canada, and what's their take on all this? And now what is the Canadian? My goodness,
Canadian
Christina,
Safe Boating Council.
Bingo. Yes, I get the letters wrong, right? But can you tell us what their standpoint is, or what their first off, what are they? What is each commission?
So Paddle Canada, we represent recreational boating or recreational paddling, across Canada. So we are membership driven, and our members are made up of Paddle Canada instructors. So these are the folks that are out teaching sanctioned canoeing, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, and we actually have a new camping program as well. So generally folks who want to learn how to paddle correctly, they want their technique correct, will seek a Paddle Canada course. But I also find that there are a lot of people out there that want to be safe, and they want to know how to safely operate their canoe, kayak, or stand-up board. So these folks will also take courses so that they know what are the required things to have with them. What do I do if I dump my boat? So, there are a lot of people out there that want to be safe, and they want to learn how to be safe. So Paddle Canada, we support our instructors and our members, but we also try to support just the general recreational paddling community in general. The Canadian Safe Boating Council also promotes safe recreational boating as a whole. So it's not specific to paddling. We also work with power boaters, and I'm not going to get all of the names of the boats right because I am a paddler at heart, but we're really there to support the recreational boating community as a whole. And the interesting thing, or maybe it's not interesting, that goes hand in hand. We basically do follow the same sort of 5 key messages. So the CSBC is really about promotion and promoting safety and getting that messaging out. And sort of the 5 key things that we talk about. The first one is PFD wearing, but then we also talk about boating sober, taking a course, because you must have an operator's card to use a power boat. We talk about being prepared. So, in the power boating world, it's maybe making sure you have enough fuel and you have all of the right requirements with you. And then there's a lot of conversation around cold water safety. Paddle Canada, we express the same 5 messages, and those same 5 messages come out in all of our programs and courses as well. So the 2 organizations working together really makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, we are talking about the same things, and it's how to be safe on the water and how to work within the community between our power boaters and our paddlers. And that's what I've really learned since I've been with the CSBC, is a lot of these the boating community, we all do want to learn how to cohabitate on the water, and most of us all have the same desire to be safe about it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, in doing my in working to set up this show, I obviously went on to the CSBC website, and there's so much on there as far as resources and information, and everything is really there. And I urge everybody that's in the chat over there, if you're really interested in safety on the water, to go over and check that out, because I don't think there's any stones there that you guys have left unturned, right? So it's a very informative thing. Is there any rumor? Maybe this be the best question to Dave. Is there any rumor to the fact that just like with power boats, you have to have your safe boaters card, right? Is there any truth to the fact that they may be implementing something like that for small vessels unmotorized that you know of?
No. There's no interest in that I know of.
Well, that's a good thing.
It's just for the powered community, and that means electric motors. That any kind of power on a vessel, if it's powered, and a sailboat that has a motor on it that's not being used, you need a PCOC for that as well.
Canoe with a motor on it?
Canoe with a motor on it, PCOC, right? Anything that's powered.
Okay, so if you had like a little trolling motor on your canoe, you'd have to have
That's
your,
right.
Your smart boaters certification. Yeah, and that's kind of recently changed, because wasn't it at one point there was a certain size vessel up and anything over 10 horsepower, right? But now they've dropped that down to any motorized vehicle or vessel, right? Actually,
no. Where that 10 horsepower rule comes is about licensing your vessel. You don't have to license a vessel that has a 9.9 or lower.
Okay.
But it's always been, if you were on a motorized vessel, you needed a PCOC.
Okay. So this is a general question for everybody then. When it comes to life vest, wearing a life vest, PFD, life jacket, whatever you want to call it, what do you think the biggest conflict or the biggest thing that is keeping people from wearing these things? Is it a comfort factor? Is it a stubbornness factor? It won't happen to me type of deal? Anybody got any take on that?
Go ahead, ladies. I'll finish up.
I'll start with you, Christina.
Me?
Sure.
I really don't know. I don't understand it. It's not logical to me. I'm kind of, sometimes I'm a very black and white person, and if you wear, you got to have it. You got to carry it on all the portages or whatever you're doing. You got to carry it anyway. So you might as well just wear it, and it could save your life. I mean, it's kind of a no brainer. I don't really understand when people don't wear them. Maybe they're too hot. Maybe they're not comfortable. I don't know. I can't really say, because I wear mine and I don't have any problems with it. So I don't know. I don't really know why other people don't. It confuses me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Michelle? You got any take on that?
I think some people maybe don't think that they're cool, and I think there's a demographic of folks. I'm going to pick on young adults. I see someone in the comments someone says something about wanting nice tan lines. So, I think that there are some folks that don't want to cover up, I don't know, their cool shirts or whatever. So I think there's an element of it's not cool to wear the PFD. And then I think there's definitely an element of that, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I don't have to wear it. If I fall out, I'll put it on, or I know how to swim, or I know how to paddle, or I'm not going to fall out. So.
Yeah. I think one of the big thing is a comfort factor. A hot day, hot summer's day, who wants to have this big puffy thing on, right? But that's I don't know, Dave.
So, in all the years I've been policing, I mainly policed the Muskoka Lakes at the time, and then Lake Simcoe, Lake Couchiching, Georgian Bay. The reasons I have asked numerous people why are your children wearing life jackets and you guys aren't? Mm-hmm. And tan lines comes up. Tan lines. I don't like bad tan lines. Swimming. I'm a good swimmer. I don't need to wear one. The one I get a lot is, oh, my cottage is just over there, so I'm good. Like I can swim there, no problem. And the best one is I don't really expect to go in the water. Mm-hmm. So those are those are the main ones. And, you know, little story on my side, Dennis, is that when I was a teacher, I was a cottager as well. I was lucky enough my parents had a cottage on a lake, and I was lucky enough to spend my summers up there. And I never, ever wore my life jacket, ever. And I always, you know, of course you have one on board because you didn't want to get stopped by the police. So what it took was to do this job and to see the tragedy and to go to those calls. And unfortunately, we are the ones that are pulling those bodies out of the water and letting the families know, etc. And what it came down to was one simple word, is respect. I started to respect the water, and where I didn't before. And the respect is, I learned as a police officer that no matter what your swimming ability is, no matter who you are, the water can take your life in a matter of seconds, unless you respect, unless you kind of go, yeah, you know what, it's 30 knot wind, I'm not going to go out of my canoe today. Or, you know, there's white caps. So, you know, maybe it's ideal just to sit back and wait. Or, you know, do I have all the safety equipment on board that I need? Should I wear my life jacket? You know, those are all the questions that I learned by doing this job. And what I'm trying to do is to pass on that knowledge to people, just to make better choices. And Dennis, you talked about bulky. You know, I grew up, life jackets were bulky, keyhole life jackets, big, heavy life jackets, right? Technology has changed so much that you look at that great life jacket that Christina had. I wear one of those when I kayak all the time, and it doesn't matter what the temperature is, I don't get hot. It's a fantastic life jacket. But I also have bought myself one of those inflatable life jackets, and I am so comfortable with this thing. I've been known to come home after my shift, because they give them to us on the job. Come home after my shift. My wife, you know, I come home at 8:00, dinner's ready. I sit down in uniform, and I still have my life jacket on. She's the one that has to tell me to take my life jacket off.
Right.
Just because it's so comfortable. And I'm trying to pass on that knowledge, saying if it is your life, it's worth the investment to buy yourself, you know, a $230 life jacket, because it is worth every single penny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that might be a big factor too. You know, getting good life jackets versus, you know, inexpensive ones. Right. Not to say, you know, the Canadian Tire brand one might not be to the same levels, because they all have to meet requirements, right?
That's right.
But to get a life jacket or PFD that is properly fitting, not too tight, you know, adjusted properly for you. You know, my life jacket might not fit the same as it would on Dave or Michelle or Christina, because we all have different builds, right? So where mine might be, you know, loose around the chest, it might be tighter around the chest for somebody, or whatever, you know. So you should get a life jacket or a PFD that's actually fitted for yourself. And there's a lot of things to fitting a life jacket, right?
That's right. That's right.
Who knows a lot about that? Anybody on panel here?
Well, you know, from my experience, I can, it's so important that children wear the proper size life jackets. And I have come across vessels that clearly the life jacket's too large. And if kids go overboard wearing that life jacket, they're going to slip right through. The arms are going to go up and they'll slip right through the holes in that life jacket. So we try to educate the public as best we can regarding that stuff. And I think overall, I think people know that, you know, if that is if Johnny's wearing this adult size life jacket, it's going to do absolutely nothing for him. And it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. The law says you have to have a proper fitted life jacket. So what we say is, if you can lift it as you move it up and down 3 inches, then it's a proper fitting life jacket. Anything over that is a little big.
So from the shoulders type of thing.
Yeah.
If it goes anywhere.
You move 3 inches. Yeah.
Yeah.
So folks that are selling them should know that. Like, I worked in outdoor retail for 18 years. So like, part of our training was how to fit paddlers with the jackets and recommend ones that might be more suited for canoeing, kayaking, or sitting in that boat. And we would always, I can remember being in the store and trying to lift them up over people's, you know, when the armholes would go over their head, and, you know, explain to them, when you're in the water, that's what this one's going to feel like. So you have to tighten everything up. And
yeah.
Also, if you take courses, one of the first things they teach you in the course is your safety gear. Kayaking courses, a canoe course I've taken, all of the courses I've taken. I never used to wear a PFD back in the day. I didn't know how important it was, and something that Dave said, about the awareness and the power of the water. When I first started taking courses, that's when I really kind of clued in and was like, wow, like I could be in some serious trouble here. Like something could really happen to me. And, that's when I was in, that was it. I'm wearing it all the time. That's that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And especially somebody like you, Christina, who you're out there venturing on your own all the time, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't take much, we were discussing in the green room about like stand-up paddle boarders. David mentioned that he sees paddle boarders way out there, like they look like like this out there in the distance, and they're not wearing PFDs, and who knows if they're even tethered to their vessel, right? If they fall off that vessel and the wind comes along and takes it away, and they're a mile and a half out there at the shore, everybody might think they could swim a good lap, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to swim a good lap, right?
Yeah, and Dennis, I can probably think of a handful of occurrences that exact thing happened, and one that comes to mind is that this gentleman was on a paddleboard. Someone saw him on shore fall off. The PFD, the SUP was pushed by the wind, and he couldn't get to it, and he eventually disappeared under the water. What we learned about this gentleman is he was a good swimmer. He was a guy that lived in a condo building. He would swim every morning. He would go down and swim every morning, and he was not afraid of the water. The fact is, he entered the water involuntarily, was not ready for it, and then his only flotation device he had was blowing away from him, and he just disappeared. It's a tragic case, but it's a perfect example that when people say I'm a good swimmer, it doesn't really matter. Right?
Yeah, especially when the confusion sets in, right? You're in the water, like you say, your only flotation is just sailed away from you, right? Do you go after it? Do you start that slow swim back in the shore, doing a breaststroke, trying to save energy? What do you do, right? And if the panic sets in, and if the wind's taking it away, chances are there's a chop starting, right? So, yeah. I bet you have stories aplenty, Dave, to talk about when it comes to tragedy, tragic events. But I'm sure there's also some good stories as well of good thing they had it, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't really hear too much about the good stories. We get dispatched to calls if someone gets pulled onto shore. I do remember a couple occurrences, but one thing about the OPP, we collect our statistics, and we look after probably about 95% of the water in Ontario, where you have Toronto and Halton and Peel and Hamilton. They all have the Golden Horseshoe, and then Barrie, and so we have small municipal forces that look after a bit of water, but it's mostly ours. And we every fatality we have, we try to get as much information as we can from the fatality to learn from that fatality. And for the last 12 years, and 12 years ago, we started really a great data collection program. In the last 12 years, we have lost 289 people in marine fatalities. And what a marine fatality is if a boat's involved and you enter the water involuntarily and you die because of that, that's a marine fatality. If someone dives off the boat, then that's not a marine fatality, voluntarily. So out of that 289, 253 people out of that 289 did not have a life jacket on. And that's almost 88% of the people. So that screams to us about statistics. In 2020, I made 2021 actually, I made a part of my investigation to determine what kind of swimming ability did these people have. Because there are non-swimmers, I'll tell you that. There are a handful of non-swimmers that don't wear PFDs, which I don't get. But we learned that over half of the fatalities in 2021 were either good swimmers or fair swimmers. So it's that shock factor of entering the water involuntarily that, like I said, you have to have respect for the water. It can take your life away in seconds.
Mm-hmm. And it's not only swimming ability, but if the water's cold, hypothermia could set in, loss of control of your own body functions because, the water's too cold, your nerves start to go on you. Before you know it, you can't move, right?
Right. And people think cold water's in May and October. Cold water's all summer long. And unless you're in a very a smaller interior lake, you're going to have cold water everywhere. Like Lake Simcoe, Lake Pontchartrain, like you're going to have Lake Muskoka, even cold water, right? You just have to realize that as your body slows down as the cold water gets to you. So you have to be leery of that.
Yeah, I've seen people in warm water, on a beach on a super hot sunny day, and they come out of the water and they're shivering, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the water pulls heat from people, like it pulls heat out of you, right? So
that's right.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I understand that we're well on our way to there being, what do we call it, a law that will be mandating that you must wear a personal flotation device while in a small vessel?
So if we get into the weeds of it, Transport Canada, when we say we're well on the way, I don't know if I can say that yet. What I can say is Transport Canada is actually interested in possibly changing this law. So back in 2009, I was acting in this position, and I tried to talk to organizations about a mandatory law. And understand, we're looking at mandatory PFD or life jacket law for vessels under 6 meters. So that basically includes almost all paddlecraft and tin boats and pontoon boats, etc. And that's what our stats are saying. It's all the vessels under 6 meters. Over 6 meters, very few fatalities. Under 6 meters in all our marine fatalities counts for 84% of our fatalities. So that tells you a lot. So Transport Canada. So it started off with Canadian State Boating Council, and I sit with Michelle as well on the board. And they have always been interested. Back in 2009, very interested. When I was the Marine coordinator in 2009, like I said, I made some calls and people were not interested. So then it kind of fizzled out. But the stats started to really start talking about mandatory wear. So the Canadian State Boating Council started to talk about it, including the Life Saving Society of Canada, including a lot of other organizations. And as an enforcement community, the OPP took it upon themselves, kind of look at the stats, look at where's the problem here? Why are people dying on the water when they're trying to enjoy the day as best they can, and then this tragedy happens? Like, no one expected to die, right? So how did this happen? So we took it upon ourselves. So I put it together a presentation. I compared our stats towards the United States. The United States have a very good stat collection process. And it was really interesting to learn that every state in the United States has some kind of mandatory PFD law. And where it is the type of vessel, like PWC's type of vessel, or age requirements. If you're under the age of 12 or 14, then you have to wear a PFD. Or times of year. So like in Pennsylvania, you have to wear a PFD between November and April for obviously the hyperthermia thing. But what I learned, even though with all these mandatory laws, what I learned is their stats, not as big, of course, but their stats were identical to ours as far as percentages of number of people dying. They still had, an 85% fatality rate of people not wearing life jackets in all their fatalities. So in 2021, they had 658 boating fatalities in the United States. So that tells me a lot, saying that kind of mandatory law isn't really working as it should. So what we did with the OPP, we then approached the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. I gave a presentation to them, and then we put together a resolution asking the Ontario government to look into mandatory wear on the federal side. And then we also gave a presentation to the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. And again, those are chiefs of police right across the country. And they put together, or we put together another resolution, which was passed. So we have those two resolutions kind of going up this side to talk to have the Association of Chiefs of Police to talk to Transport Canada and the federal government. And then on this side, we have the Canadian State Boating Council, Life Saving Society, and all those great organizations to talk to the federal government. So because we're trying to get them to understand that this is a real issue, and we're going to save a lot of lives if we have a mandatory wear law in place. And that's our opinion. That's the information I gave them. Transport Canada now is also doing their own research, using their own people out there to start doing surveys and sitting on marinas and boating ramps and taking their own data to try to determine, okay, is that true what the OPP are saying? Is that true what the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police are saying? And it is bang on. We have about a 28% life jacket wear rate on the water right now, which is very, very low.
That's very low. Yeah. I just want to put up a quick comment here from Alan Bierhoff. Says in roughly his 30-year career in fire and rescue and EMS, he was never involved in a marine recovery where the body was wearing a PFD. That's
yeah. And I did an interview with our guy in charge of our underwater search and recovery unit, and a comment he made on camera was, "I have never recovered anyone from the bottom of the lake wearing a PFD." And that's a huge comment.
Yeah. And there, as a police officer, I'm sure there's nothing worse than ever having to go to a family member and saying, "Sorry, I regret to inform you," or like they say on TV, your loved one's not coming home because they weren't wearing a PFD, right?
Right.
And they could have gone home and given a big hug and a kiss and said, "Honey, I'm home," right? So
yeah, like family members deserve to know what happened, and we try to give them the best information as possible. And unfortunately, the recovery is one piece of the investigation, but the notification is the other. And it is probably the hardest thing that a police officer has to go through, is to notify a family that is not suspecting any of that information to come from your mouth.
Sure. Michelle, you Dave touched on it a bit though, but where does the CSBC come into helping to try and push like a mandate like this, where I'm sure they're involved in this too, to try and get these things to be kind of mandatory?
I think primarily as an organization, we tend to be more about education and promoting the method, and we support, and Dave could jump in here if I'm getting this piece wrong, but it's more about we will back pushing the legislation, but we have other organizations that we work with that will be the ones that will actually sort of go to bat for it with our backing, if you will. But primarily what we do, I saw in the comments, somebody made a comment about education is lacking, and I feel like there's a lot of education out there. It's how to get that message out across more screens and across more eyes, and to get people to allow themselves to be educated, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably a little bit more where our focus is as an organization on its own. But
yeah, ultimately, who passes a law like that, Dave, to say, you know what, this is the new law? Is this all Ontario legislation, or is it sort of federal, where it would be Canada-wide?
Yeah, so the wearing or having of life jackets or PFDs on board of a vessel comes from the Canada Shipping Act 2001. It's a federal act, so whatever happens in Ontario is the same that happens in Nova Scotia and BC, etc. So Transport Canada, marine safety, federal, it's federal law. So they have to make sure that, this is just not an Ontario thing. They have to make sure that this happens across Canada. And there's so many different avenues they have to go. And this is why it takes so long for a law like this to pass, that they have to do public consultation. They have to do their own research. They have to, they're constantly assessing, different organizations and different people within Transport Canada to see, is this legitimate? How do we go about doing this? And is this really going to save some lives, right? Is this really a law that we should have? Or is this something that really, it's kind of, it's situational, and, in 2 years, this will go away. So they do a lot of research to get the law like this passed, because they can't pull it back. Once it's passed, they can't pull it back.
Yeah, it's not like they're just flipping a coin one day and saying, okay, let's change this, right?
That's right.
The research has to be there. Unfortunately, the research that makes it passable is the research that, or the stats that we don't want to hear, right? So,
right. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Christina and I come from, we're social media people, right? We're, I guess the term is influencers to a certain point. I'm as guilty as the next. I'll go as to say that if anybody's watched my videos from the past couple of years, you'll see me in instances where I'm not wearing a PFD. My opinion on that kind of changed quite strongly when we had this tragedy that happened up there in Lake Opeongo, and a lot of attention was brought to this particular matter, even though. And I just found this out today, or was it yesterday, Christina, that both the fellow that passed away or drowned it wasn't actually because he wasn't wearing PFD, it's because he died of hypothermia type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But still, that was enough to flick the switch. If you've seen any of the videos that I should be posting here from the last year, all my trips from last summer, there wasn't a minute where I didn't have my PFD on. I don't care about tan lines. I don't care about the discomfort. Mind you, my life jacket fits very well because when I bought my one canoe and I bought my PFD to go with it, they helped me fit it properly, right? So huge shout out to Swift Canoes on that one. It's being influencers. I think people like Christina, myself, have sort of that, and we've talked about this many times, right, Christina? That we have the responsibility as influencers to do it the right way. Kevin Callan, who I see is in the chat tonight, he's an advocate of if you want people to do it, you got to do it, right?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. So. It's something that, a lot of people have to lead by example, and especially in our genre, because people are watching what we do on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying I'm a hero, because it's not one of those things, right? But it's one of those things where we talked about it in the green room as well, that if we can convince one person in the panel or in the chat over there tonight that says, you know what, I'm going to start wearing my life jacket all the time when I'm on the water, it's a success, right? So, because I'm sure there's people out there that are say, you know what, I don't need it. If I'm paddling a shallow little creek, I don't need it, right? Fall over, hit your head on a branch or whatever, you knock yourself out. There's so many scenarios, right?
There is. Yeah. And I'm, I read every collision, every occurrence that comes across the OPP to learn from it. And the Lake Opeongo, the one thing I learned about that was, and I passed on this message, that when you're in those shoulder seasons and the water is extremely cold, and you're on a paddle craft that's in a large lake, then stick to shore. Right? Yeah. Stick to shore. And that's something, unfortunately, we learned from someone's demise. And that really, people, that's the stuff that people maybe don't think about that could possibly happen. And you're right. There's so many different things that can happen out there. And unfortunately, some of them do.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question, Dave. I don't think this was mentioned in your report about the 84%. Were any of those fatalities alcohol involved as well, or was it just basically?
Yeah, really good question, Christina. A lot of people think that alcohol is always involved with these. Our alcohol numbers are extremely low, and I can't say none of them were about alcohol, but I'll check that stat when I stop talking. But I think it's around the 10, maybe 8%, 10% of the fatalities, maybe, and that's not impairment. That is had been drinking. We have evidence that the person has been drinking, so which could be really from, a beer, right, to a load of them. So, but I can find that a really good question.
Thanks. Just curious.
A question I have about PFDs too. Do they carry expiration dates?
I believe
like a best before type of thing, because I recall when I was younger, I was a little young canoe hound. I remember PFDs having dates in them. Now I don't know if it was a manufacturer's date or if it was like an expiration thing. But do they have any tendency to expire or go bad?
So in the Muskoka Lakes where you have these big mahogany, beautiful boats. I asked for PFDs and they pull out those old K-Pock life jackets, right? They're filled with horsehair. They've got an air bladder and they're in perfect shape. And that is a fully legit PFD or life jacket, and that because it's a keyhole life jacket. So no, it doesn't. Those inherently buoyant life jackets, they don't have a expiry date. What expires them is this: if there's certification, if that seal on the back where it says Transport Canada approved, and you can't read that PFD is garbage. If it's missing a strap for any reason, that PFD is garbage. If the zipper doesn't work, PFD is garbage. It basically has to be in perfect shape. If there's a rip in the nylon exposing the flotation, PFD is garbage. So it has to be almost perfect. The ones that do expire are the inflatables. And you will actually see, and I'm not saying if it says 2024 expiry or January 2024, it doesn't mean it's going to stop working in 2024. But in those PFDs, there are things that actually will make it will push the pin into the CO2 cartridge, and you just want to make sure those are in great shape. So what are you looking at?
I'm going to put you full screen there so we can see
seal?
what you're looking at.
Yeah, it says approved by Transport Canada.
Perfect.
And I do see a date on there. It says 2010.
That's the manufacturer's date.
Okay, so it's not a best
Not
before
expiry.
date.
Yeah, I checked that too.
Okay.
I looked at that first.
But the inflatables, the cartridges have to be replaced. I think every 4 years. I think. I'm not sure, but they will have a date right on the cartridge.
Okay. Interesting. So are there PFDs that are Canadian specific versus American specific?
Another great question.
Yeah.
So as the law states in the Canada Shipping Act 2001, you have to have Transport Canada approved life jacket or Department of Transport. Okay. We have people that, and I keep giving the Muskoka Lakes as an example because I worked there for so many years, that we have a lot of Americans that come up with American boats and they have American equipment, and those boats stay in Canada. So there's a bunch of violations there, but technically Canadian life jackets are superior to American life jackets, technically, by their buoyancy. I think our opinion in the enforcement world is, you've got a life jacket, right? Life jacket's pretty close. What's happening nowadays is they have a hybrid label now that the PFDs that are being approved are approved for US and for Canada. It's actually on the label. So if you have that, fantastic. If you don't have that and you have US life jacket, technically they are illegal in Canada.
Okay, interesting. 'Cause
Canoers
I
as
had
well,
heard that.
everybody?
Pardon me?
Canoers, everybody? Kayakers, everybody?
I knew of a couple that they were out paddling. Oh, this would have been 10 years ago when I think it was Astral first brought their PFDs into the Canadian market. And they must have had an officer who wasn't in a good mood that day because they were fined $250 because it wasn't a Transport Canada one.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were wearing it. Oh, and they might not have been wearing it. It might have been in the vessel. They might have actually had another. They might have been missing the vessel as well. So I think they were doubly charged, but they were.
But they had the PFD on board. And
yeah, but it wasn't it was a brand that was not Transport Canada approved.
right. So
yeah.
Again, it is up to the officer's discretion if their charge should be laid. I think there's a lot of officers out there that if they see a U.S. lifeguard or U.S. Coast Guard approved jacket, then they'd be okay with that. But it's not the letter of the law. So I can't speak for every officer, obviously.
Good for them for having some sort of device, but it might not be the right one, right?
So if you're a canoe tripper and you live in the States and you want to come up and go to Temagami, there's a good chance that you might have to rent or buy a PFD for that trip if you're coming to Canada. If you have an American PFD. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but letter of the law.
I didn't know that. I learned something new today.
Yep, letter of the law.
I'm just going to post one more quick comment here on the screen, and then we're going to take our quick break there and do our swag giveaway after that. And then I'm going to invite some people up on panel. Maybe they'll have some questions, maybe to lay to rest any myths or theories that they may have about PFDs, life jackets, things of that sort. But John M says, maybe it's my lack of experience, but canoeing without a PFD seems very risky. To me, I'm a strong swimmer, but I know I'm not impervious to drowning. And I think more people need to understand that you're not impervious to drowning. You hear of people dying in a teaspoon of water, right? Or drowning in a teaspoon of water. It could happen. Like Sergeant Dave said, water can get you when you least expect it. So, yeah. Okay, just going to take a quick commercial break, everybody, and we will return in a few moments here. So it's a great opportunity to refresh a cocktail, get rid of a cocktail, and we'll see you back here in a moment for our swag giveaway.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Hey, welcome back to overtime of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show. Hope everybody's enjoying tonight's show on PFDs and boating safety. You know what? These shows, I learn as much from these shows as I'm sure many of you are over there in the chat. And that's why I like bringing this type of content to you, is so that, you know what, I can learn as well as you do. So, very, very good evening. We have a couple of people here, a few people here on panel that are very knowledgeable. So let's see how much knowledge we can get out of these people. I just posted the link in the chat there for anybody that might want to come up and ask a question, share a comment or a story. Please do. Don't be shy. Come on up for a few moments and share what you have with us and with everybody in the chat over there. In the meantime, here right now, we're just going to do our quick little swag giveaway. Our friends over at Salis Marine have offered us a life jacket, a brand new PFD that they're throwing into the mix here. It's a Salis Marine Wear Eddy Flex Up PFD. They're willing to give you your choice of color, and they're willing to make sure that it's the proper size for you, and they will send that out to the winning person. So for tonight's swag giveaway, what I need you to do is just very simple. I need you to just send me an email to coasprize@gmail.com. You have until Sunday at 11 o'clock to get your entry in, and all I want to know is what's your favorite brand of PFD. Maybe it's your Canadian Tire one, maybe it's Salis, maybe it's Mustang. There's a lot of great manufacturers out there. But you know what? By all means, just let me know what your favorite brand of PFD is in. And if you get your entry in by that time, you stand a chance of winning this prize. So please do get that into me. We're going to get our panelists back up here on the screen. And okay, they're all ready. I see them in the basement there. Glasses coming off, hats going on. Okay, they're all good. Welcome back, guys and gals. Who wouldn't want a brand new PFD, right? Yeah,
I wouldn't mind one.
I have one thing that I think should be the case for all PFDs. My PFD, I have a Salis Ungava, and when I bought it, I wanted red. I wanted red in the worst way because I like them bright colors when you're out on the water, rescue situations, the whole 9 yards. But I had to settle for their gray version, and I still every time I put it on, as much as I like it, I wish I'd have would have been able to get a red. They just didn't have my size. I take like a large, extra large because I'm a husky guy, right? So that's all good. So like I say, I just posted the link in the chat. Hopefully we'll get a couple takers to come on up and share some stories. But Christina, you're a Salis girl, right?
Yes, I am, through and through.
Yeah.
Started out accidentally and then switched over purposely to my new one. I had my other one for a very long time, and it was starting to kind of get crusty, so couldn't read the label anymore. So
there you go. And you had to go with your green one too, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And how about you, Michelle? What's your brand of choice?
I have Coquetet and Salis.
I have a Coquetet as well. Sorry, forgot about that. Rescue best. I
like Salis because I do appreciate the Canadian made.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave, what does the OPP mandate that you officers wear?
Well, the OPP has no opinion.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
you can carry your own brand, whatever.
I'm sorry. I have my favorites for sure. I certainly can't be in this position and promote a product. So.
Okay. No, that's understandable.
I hope you understand that. Thank you.
Yep. No, but I know there are a lot of good inflatable brands out there. You see all the fishermen on their fisherman shows wearing the inflatables too, I guess for comfort factor, right? You got your Mustangs and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot of great brands out there. Does anybody? No, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say, does anybody know any brands that you should stay away from? But if it's a PFD and it floats and it's certified, it should be a good brand, right? So, yeah, that's all right. Let's see here. Going through some questions. Totally lost myself. Can we? Does anybody have any stories to share? Like I say, I know Dave, you said that you don't typically get called to the happy endings. It's usually the sad endings. Is there any? Without getting too far into detail, are there any scenarios that you can set that people should be aware of that you've seen?
So I think when we're trying to educate the public, and I do a lot of presentations, I talk about taking a step back before you jump in that boat and go for that ride or jump in that canoe. just take a step back and think about what can happen. So where I'm going with this is that we have too many fatalities when it comes to rental cottages and the B&Bs, and people are, they jump in canoes where they don't know this environment. They don't know the busy, the windy shores of the Great Lakes, and they jump in a canoe and they don't have any equipment with them. And the next thing you know, it's tragedy. And we're now calling, fire and calling us. And we have a helicopter in the air trying to search for bodies that are in the water somewhere and trying to, it's a very short rescue period, but trying to get a rescue before we have a recovery. And, in the last handful of years, we've had too many of those where it's a great weekend. It's a fun weekend. You have all your friends there. There's 10 of you in a rental cottage, and then it turns into tragedy and the weekend's over. So we're asking, think about what if. I hate to say Murphy's Law, but what can happen will happen. I'm not saying that, but what can happen can happen. Right? And think about that. And prepare yourself for that possibility and protect yourself.
Yeah, Christina.
You said you had statistics on renters or cottages. Is there also statistics on outfitters and like people are renting boats, like in that sense, in that regard, like to go out and, like I don't want to mention any specific outfitters, but just overall.
No, I'll never do that. But it's like I said, the people that don't understand the environment are at risk right off the bat, where they don't respect the water and they put too many people in a vessel, or they are unaware of, when you're in a canoe, you have to figure out where your center of gravity is or else you're going over, right? Those types of things, and they don't protect themselves. So yes, unfortunately, we have way too many. Every death is too many, however, but we do have far too often we have those things happen at provincial parks, at conservation areas, at rental places. Just they haven't been educated, right? They don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
Right. What makes a good PDF? What characteristics should people be looking for? I know we talked about sizing them with this here and stuff like that, but what characteristics? There's many different styles. Now, is it true that PFD or personal flotation device and life jackets are different items? Like there's different types of life jackets, right?
Right. I'm doing all the talking here.
I'm talking to anybody.
You're the smartest one.
No, because so everybody's seen the butt cushion PFDs, right? It's like a butt cushion. It's like a big foam block that's got a couple straps on it, right? That's not called a life jacket per se, would it be?
It's called a butt cushion.
Butt cushion. I guess they're all butt cushions if they're not on you, right?
That's it. That's exactly what it is. It's a butt cushion. The PFD again is certified, but what I can say, Dennis, is what constitutes a good PFD is a PFD that's comfortable, that you will never leave without it. It's like a seatbelt, right? You jump in a car and you put on a seatbelt. It's just natural, and that PFD needs to be like comfortable, and you like it, and you like the colors, you like how it looks on you, whatever. But something that you're going to wear. And it's just got to be automatic. I grab my kayak, I grab my PFD. Simple as that. Right?
And
That constitutes a good PFD.
What about color preferences? Because I know with my PFD being gray, you're not going to spot that from the air with a helicopter type of thing. It's going to blend right in, right? So the brighter colors, the yellows, the reds, like the neons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the brighter colors are better. But again, there's a lot of PFD jackets that people wear that are black and purple, and they look great. Like they're really great looking PFDs. But because they go with their personal watercraft or something, any PFD that is worn is a great PFD. So, it's I don't think, as a search and rescue piece, sure, the bright colors are better, but you're wearing a PFD and hopefully you'll never get to that search and rescue piece. Right.
Mm-hmm. And what about, if the mandate that we were discussing earlier is passed, where it's mandated that anybody in a vessel under 6 meters long, self-propelled type of deal is mandated to wear a PFD, how will that be policed? You guys you're spread thin, obviously. You can only be so many places at so many times, right? But when it comes to backcountry and stuff like that, how can that? Is there any possible way of policing that?
So currently, we have in the OPP we have 170 vessels, and which constitutes about 380 marine officers. So we try to get places that we haven't been to. We try to patrol the areas. Like my opinion, when I talk to the marine officers, everyone deserves to see the police on their water if we can get to their water. Right? There are some lakes that are not we can't get into because there's no public ramp to get into it, and no one wants to be that person that lets the police on their lake. So those are some hard lakes to get to, but we do our best, and we have a very strict rules. There's no warnings when it comes to liquor. There is no warnings when it comes to life jackets, and that's people that don't have them. And then we talk about speeding in restricted zones, speeding by shorelines and by channels, etc. That's a no warning as well. Right. So those are 3 laws that we take very seriously. And I really think the officers are trained with binoculars, whatever method they have, is to see if everyone's complying with the more, like the one that we really care about is the liquor and the life jackets, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Christina, you had a quick question there?
Yeah, Dave, you just said no warning. Can you elaborate a little bit for people who are watching who don't know what that means?
Sorry, I'm going to pop a question up from Linda at Lipstick Lodge. She said, do you arrest those not carrying PFDs or just warn them to bring one? So
there's no arrest authority. The arrest authority that we have, it comes from the criminal code for like impaired operation, things like that. But there's no arrest authority in the Canada Shipping Act 2001. So no one gets arrested for carriage requirements. But life jackets are a known law. It's been law forever that you have to have them on board. So people that don't have them, there's really no excuse. So we don't give warnings for life jacket offenses, which means that they will get a $280 fine for not having. And the way the law works, it's $280. And then for every person after that doesn't have a life jacket, it's another $100 on top of that. So if you have a boat full of 10 people, no life jackets, you're looking at $1,200 fine, right? So that's the way the law writes. Now, am I saying an officer is going to write a $1,200 fine? I don't know. That's, again, the discretion piece. But that's the way the law is written. $280 for the first one, $100 for every single one after that. So you have to have one on board, and that is a no-brainer for anybody. That should happen no matter what.
Right, and this is for us social media people. The reach of the law. Now, this is something I'm really interested in understanding. Right? Okay, is because we are influencers. We're making these YouTube videos or posting onto other social media platforms. And there was an instance last year where a couple of YouTubers broke all kinds of Canadian laws in a Canadian national park, and they've been fined up to here based on what was seen on YouTube. Can that fall over as to Canoe Hound goes out without his PFD on and Sergeant Dave Moffat sees me? Where's the extent of the law? Can we be fined for that, or like how? Can you elaborate on that?
When you're looking at doing the investigation, so to speak, for any law, it basically is the 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, and how, so to speak. So it's like writing an English exam. 5 W's. So it's important of, who it is, where it is, when it happened, and how it happened. So we call it the facts and issue. So yes, so if we have, for instance, if someone has been complaining about a big red boat that has no mufflers going by the cottage, we can take a video of evidence of that boat where we know the numbers, we know who belongs to it, who drove it, what time it happened, and we can lay a charge because we're not there all the time. So we really, like an assault, right? We're not there when assault happens. So we do the investigation, find those facts and issue, and then we put that towards our investigation. So the same thing can happen with the Canada Shipping Act 2001.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, because in essence, video, you don't get much better than a piece of video with incriminating evidence on it, right?
That's right.
The law uses it all the time, looking for dash cams and
that's right.
incidences and, porch cams and things of that sort, right? So yeah, that's interesting. You know what? I'm going to wear my life jacket. I'm going to be a good guy. We do have a person in the basement here that I'm sure has a question or two. Please welcome Marty Morissette. How you doing, buddy? Long time no see.
Long time no see, indeed.
Another Salis user. There we go.
Oh yeah, no, it's no promotion of the brand. It's more, I'm out there. I dropped a comment earlier, and I've got an interesting story to share with people because I think people learn something out about it. But I think life jackets have come so far from the time when I was a kid to today. Like these paddling jackets, like this is a full-on rescue jacket from Salis and Level 6. It's got tethering for all that for guides, but it's like, for me, like a life jacket as a paddler is the uniform. I wear it as proudly as a police officer wears his uniform, as a doctor wears a scrub going into the surgery. It's like, this is what represents us. And I think that's a big message we need to share with the youth in a lot of ways, because the old generation that don't care, I doubt will change much about that, but we do have a big impact on the new kids that are just joining. And nowadays, just style wise, and I know that for kids style matters and for the youth it matters, and nowadays they are absolutely amazing. Like the build of them, the styles of them, what they offer, like there's so many different little pockets for your snack, for your things. Like this one here has like a neoprene like little pocket here, so when you're in cold conditions, you're scouting your rapids, you can just put them in here and you can keep warm as you go out. It's something we need to talk about in many ways personally, because I think for someone who's worked in aquatics his entire life, I work for the city of Ottawa in aquatics. I manage an aquatic facility. It's like drowning is real. It's certainly real. Like, we talk about this all the time, and this is obviously a great way to prevent that. But I always like to go one step further, and I'd like to hear what maybe some of the folks on the panel have with that. Is wearing a PFD is a part of the equation, and it's a great part of the equation. But I do believe that there needs to be also a bit of a conversation around, can you swim 100 meters wearing a PFD? Because if you look at the fatality, for example, I read the transcript all the way through, like the one that happened at Opiongo, and there's a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of information that went into that. But when you read it, it's like the people that unfortunately pass, they didn't drown. They I think they went to hypothermia, if I remember correctly. But had they been able to swim for 100 meters to shore, it would have probably made a big difference. They did not know how to swim, and the PFD did not, in the conditions that they were, because the waves and all that, it just wasn't enough, if that makes sense. So wearing your PFD,
what it was supposed to do, but yeah.
Right, exactly, right. So that poses a question to like the level of responsibility for the outfitters, maybe, or down the road, even like there's a great program that we teach in our pools that it's called Swim to Survive with the Life Saving Society, that teaches kids of grade 3 to roll into the pool, to tread water for a minute, and to swim 100 meters. And we do that with and without life jackets with them, because it is, if you're going to fall off a boat, you're going to roll into the water, you need to be able to tread water for a bit, then swim away, sort of deal, to rescue. Yeah, like if you can't swim with a PFD and you're in the middle of a big lake, it'll buy you time, but it's important, I think, that we talk also about that. I don't know what you guys think, though.
That, in my opinion, yeah, you're right. It's something I wouldn't have considered either. Is can you swim with a PFD on? Like you say, it did its job in that case, but the fact that they couldn't get themselves closer to the shore definitely had a bearing, right, Michelle?
So my husband works for our local outdoor education program, and they do a pretty extensive summer tripping program. And part of their swim test is the students have to swim with one and without one to prove that they can do it both ways. But they've actually recently, since 2017, I think it's been PFDs all the time on the water, regardless.
And can I add one thing to that, Michelle? You're bang on. How many people are really good at putting a PFD on in the water?
Yeah, that's another great
It's
one.
a hard skill. It's a tough skill to know.
And swimming with your clothes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another one that we do teach. And when I was still instructing paddling, that would be another one I would do. It's like, okay, let's all take them off and put them on.
We did them in our course as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, with Ontario Sea Kayak.
Yeah, because basically when you're out there swimming, trying to get a PFD on, you lose use of your arms. You can't get your arms up. You're not kicking strong enough to get the arms up into the holes, right? So at that point, I guess it becomes just lay on it. But yeah.
Well, and one of the messages, again, going back to the CSBC, really trying to promote messages, I can find it on Instagram later, but we created a really interesting visual that was out on social media for a while, and the tagline read, when in reach is actually out of reach. And it's a picture of the inside of a boat with a PFD and an arm sort of coming over the side trying to find their PFD.
Yeah. I seen that on the I think it was in one of your Instagram posts. That was how true.
So I have a bit of a story to share that I think will bring a lot of value to the folks at home. If you don't mind, when I was on the Noir River, I had a mishap happen, and I'm pretty, for me, I don't even question, PFD has been part of my life, and most of my canoe partners have always just accepted that, and they're all on the same, if that makes sense, page. But I was out on the Noir River. We're 4 days up north, where it's the second day we're about to do La Targie Rapid, which is a class 3 rapid. It's a pretty decent sized rapid. It's got a bend in it, and it's not without consequences. So if you dump, it's a bit of a slog after. So we get out to scout it, and as we get out, my canoe partner, and it's all part of my video, and I talked about it, by the way, for the folks that have watched this video. We get out of the canoe, we go scout it, and then my canoe partner get a little bit of the nervous bowel movement, if you will, before going in. So he's like, I gotta go before we go down. So he runs into the bush, does its thing, and I am personally nervous as well. I looked at it, I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to thread the needle here. These are the maneuvers, and it's one of the first big rapids of the trip too. So, and it's at the beginning of the season, so we're not fully into it. So I'm nervous. He's obviously nervous. He does his business. He comes back. We get in the canoe. We start paddling. We line ourselves up. We run that rapid beautifully, but we get down at the bottom. If you've ever ran any rapids when you're a little nervous, it's surprising how thirsty you are at the end of the rapid. So we get at the bottom of the rapid, and he's like, and we grab our water filtration, which we usually keep just a Catadine B-free in our life jackets. He goes to reach in it, and he turns around. He's like, "Where's my life jacket?" And so when he went for a poop, he took it off to go poop. Wow. He get back in. We're so concerned about the line we're about to do. It's like climbers. These stories happen all the time with rock climbers as well, and you have to be very careful with all the steps of the things that you need when you go climbing. Same thing with canoeing and all that. But essentially we were nervous. We're like, okay, let's go. He's 6 feet in front of me because I'm always the bow paddler, and I didn't even notice it. And it's like it would be like, a hunter not noticing someone wearing orange. This is how it should be so obvious, but nervous and all that. We get down, we're like, whoa, that was dangerous. And from that moment on, after that trip, we've made a very conscientious effort before we go down to go helmet, life jacket, whistle, go. like as part of the kind of, because when you go climbing, that's one of the things that you learn, right? Like if you're the belayers, like ready to belay, ready to climb, there's commands that you teach each other before you go up to climb. And I think I mean, you know, I'm being very honest about it. It was just an honest mistake that could have cost us quite a bit out of it, and we got lucky out of it. But it's like being conscientious, because when you go out on those trips, especially if you're going to go tripping more on rivers and you get nervous and you have a lot to remember, like your line or whatever it might be, sometimes some of the smallest and most obvious things are getting forgotten, and these could lead to fatal mistakes. So something to keep in mind. Just a little story I had to share with everybody.
And that goes in with my step back, think about what goes on, ask yourself questions, and then go and enjoy the sport you love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Marty, stick around for the green room if you like there. I'm going to drop you down because we've got somebody else in the basement.
Sounds good. I got to take this off anyways.
You wanted to add, or?
No, that's the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to pop in, say hi, as always.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty.
Yeah.
Good show last week, too, by the way.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, we do have a lot of people that are really passionate about this stuff, and some of the input that's really interesting that you can actually forget like that, you know.
I did it once too. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I was just taking pictures. Where was I? I was on the Lady Evelyn River, and I took my PFD off to take off a jacket. I was getting warm, and I just done Bradoville Falls, and I took off my PFD. I took my jacket off, and then I started paddling, and I started taking some pictures, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit. Wasn't for very long, but yeah, sometimes you forget.
Yeah. So quick question for anybody on panel. Rain jacket underneath or over top of your PFD?
Underneath.
Underneath?
Hi, Tim.
Just Tim from Super Good Camping. How you doing, bud?
Amazing award. Good to see you. Good to see you all. Good to see you, friends, Dennis and Christine. This has been a fantastic panel. Mostly I wanted to chime in and give Marty a hard time about calling us old people and that we don't change, because we actually had a yak with him last night for quite a while. Some of us do learn how to change, and change so much that we want to wear all the stuff that we do on our PFDs that we wear all the time. So throwing it back to the old days, absolutely. I'm sure that I was one of the ones that didn't have the keyhole strapped over my head when I was, shorter than I am now. This is a quickie. I just wanted to pop in. One of the favorite things, I think it was a comment on our YouTube channel, and a gentleman popped in. It was about a video that like Thomas and I had done, a backcountry in Algonquin. And actually, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to grab it. There. Okay. So it was one of my favorite comments. It always makes me happy to see people wear their life jackets in a canoe, not just have them in the boat. People don't realize how difficult it is to put a life jacket on in the water, especially when the water is cold and you may have panicked. Having a life jacket could save lives, and it's really cool to see that. Well done. I can't tell you how it's like, yay. If there was no other reason to make that video, although I had no idea because it doesn't occur to me, once I had small people in my life, we wore life jackets. That was the end of the story. There was it never came up for discussion again. Everybody wears life jackets. We're out in a craft, we're out doing whatever, and I've seen a number of people in the chat say, I'm teaching my kids swimming and stuff. They wore PFDs until they passed whatever certification. Like I don't know. That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think it's going to take to get people like? I know you guys are probably banging your heads against the wall trying to figure this out too. But what's it going to take to get people to wear their PFDs when they're on the water like this? Like, is it going to have to be a mandate like seatbelts were? Everybody fought that until everybody had to do it, right? And then when they had to do it, all of a sudden now you get in a vehicle and it's uncomfortable not to have your seatbelt on. Is that what it's going to take for something like PFDs?
Yeah, I think PFDs are going to be a unpopular decision for some people, of course, like seatbelts. but the stats are so clear for seatbelts, how many lives we saved. I've been a collision investigator for many, many years, and I go to those awful crashes where people are outside of the car, right? Yeah. And I do equate it very closely to the seatbelt law. And, you don't have time to put that seatbelt on when you see a crash coming. You don't have time to put a life jacket on when something bad's going to happen. And we had an occurrence where we had that exact situation where a life jacket was tried to put on because they knew something bad was about to happen. And while they were putting on the life jacket, they capsized the vessel. So that is one of those things, like, wear it. Like, there's no reason not to wear it. The technology now today, there's no reason not to wear it. Like, even those little, the little fanny pack life jackets that are now legal, you can wear those, put it around your waist, take it on your SUP, take it on your SUP. You're at least you're somewhat protected. It is manual. You got to pop it open, but at least you have a life jacket on you, right? Mm-hmm. And anything I can say here, hopefully I've changed some minds because of the awful stuff we see, but we're not going to get everybody. And it unfortunately will take a law to get people to get comfortable with, buying a life jacket, one that they love, and to wear it. So, which is unfortunate, right? I have all the evidence in the world to wear a life jacket. If you just want to call me, and I'll talk to you until you're obviously
right.
Cows come home, but
even things you might not be able to say here on air, right?
Right. Right. But and as I introduced myself, I was a boater. I was one of those people that never wore a life jacket, and it took this job to teach me how to respect the water. And unfortunately, that's the situation I'm in. But I'm hoping now I can educate people that don't have the opportunity to see the stuff I see, to wear the life jacket and protect themselves.
Mm-hmm. Michelle?
I've heard a few people comment tonight about it was when they have kids and grandkids that really prompted them to start wearing them. So I've often thought, I think back to when my kids, who are now in high school, but they were in kindergarten, and they would come home and chastise me for putting, a piece of paper in the garbage and not the recycling bin. So like, my kids made me a better recycler from being in school. So I've often thought it would be an interesting thing to maybe try to include in the curriculum at school, because sometimes I feel like our kids might police us in these best practices as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned
it might not make sense across all school boards, but ones where there at least is a boating community.
Yeah, you mentioned in the green room what you said, or what your one son said to you after you became on the board of directors for the CSPC, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were heading out on a kayaking trip in Georgian Bay, and there was a group of young people not wearing their PFDs and rental boats and bikinis and such. And my son, I think he was 14, he's like, "Mom, look at those people not wearing their life jackets. You need to go over there and tell them who you are and tell them to put them on." And I was like, they should have them on, but I don't think that I have that authority right now.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Tim?
So if I'm not mistaken, I'm old enough to vaguely remember when we did the whole seatbelt thing, there was I'm sure that there was an educational program, like whether it was PSAs or something. I remember that we were educated about not flying through the windshield or whatever. It was something along that line. So it wasn't simply you're bad people, put the darn belts on, right, it'll save your life. Like there was something to go along with that. So I wonder, and specifically towards Dave, I wonder if that is what it needs to happen. Mandate it and then do an education program, or do an education program, then mandate it. Well, however that needs to play out.
Absolutely. If this law ever gets passed, and it's not going to be overnight, it will take years before this does. But like when the PCOC in 1999, when the PCOC first came out, we had a handful of years that were education. And then we got to a point at, I think, year 5, we said, you know what, we've educated enough. And then we started to lay the charges. And we'll do the same thing. We'll educate people. We use all the social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, all the stuff. Carrie Schmidt down in the Highway Safety Division that, are our favorite friend that's on the Rescue 401, I think it is.
Yeah. And
He's
CH News all the time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was with him at the Toronto Boat Show, and we'd be walking around, he'd be stopped, and hey Carrie, how are you? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take your picture. Like, they don't care who I am, they just like, oh Carrie, you're the best. So good. And I'd take a lot of pictures for Carrie. It was almost like I was his person in charge of his social piece, but he would be an amazing guy to promote this. He does already. He helps us out a ton. And it will take a lot of education.
Funny you mentioned that about Kerry, because I met him at a Carnegie Medal presentation in Toronto. We were presenting a medal to an OPP officer who did a rescue at, I believe, at what's the park in Oakville there, the provincial park?
Bronny Park?
Bronny Creek. Yeah.
Yep.
So I was at that there, and I go, hey, I know you. I seen you on TV, right? So yeah, he's at the popular face. Christina, you had something to add?
I was thinking the same thing that Tim was saying, kind of on the same lines, right? Like for MAD, right? Mothers Against Drunk Driving or whatever, they have that car that they bring to like the schools, and it's all smashed up, and like it really hits home to people. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of an equivalent of that. I don't want to say scare tactic or whatever to, bring bad feelings to anyone who's lost someone, but something along that line that will really like jar people and say like, wow, like this could really happen to me. Like, look at that. Like, I remember seeing that when I was in school, and holy crap, like I was never not wearing my seatbelt ever again, like because of that. So yeah, it was a very, very impactful thing.
Sorry about the dog barking there. I think somebody just come to our front door, but that's okay. Tim, thanks very much for coming on and adding. I do have one question for Dave though. After seeing your PFD there, making modifications to a PFD, things such as putting iron-on patches and stuff, does that kind of does that take it out of being a legal piece?
So actually, there's a couple charges in the Canada Shipping Act 2001. One is a PFD not in good working order, and that's really where we would go with that. If somehow those patches, like really, I'm just ecstatic it's being worn. If somehow those patches are making it less of a product than it is, then yes, we would get involved and say, look, this thing doesn't make it anymore. You're going to have to go ahead and get a new one. I think that would be a very much an education piece. But what you're showing me, Tim, is fantastic, right? Looks great. You wear it. I'm ecstatic it's on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Tim, I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus there.
But that's fine.
I was curious also. So
I'll throw one more question in, then I'll get the heck out of your hair. Yep. So if I wanted, brilliant to point it out for starters, Dennis, it had occurred to me, I wanted to make sure that they didn't go into there's like packets inside. I made sure that when they sewed it only stayed in the outer shell. Didn't really occur to me that might be part of the package. If I wanted to take it somewhere and have somebody look at it and say, this is fine, this is not fine, is there anything like that? Is there anyone like that?
I think really you could go to the manufacturer and say, would you mind looking at this and see if it's fine? It's a really interesting comment you made, because those, like I talked about, those K-Puck life jackets, those bladders, if they are releasing air, eventually that's like putting a brick around you. Yeah. And the same thing could happen on those, right? If you break those bladders, granted, there's a lot of flotation inside, but it's designed to have a certain flotation level. Like that's a 70 Newton vest. So therefore, 125 Newton vest. So therefore, you need that flotation to pass those levels, right? So I would suggest, if you're interested, go to someone that sells them, and that knows a lot about them. There's some unbelievably educated people out there that could help you out.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you popping on panel. Good to see you again.
Good night, all.
And feel free to stick around if you like.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, and we have one more person here in the basement there, and then I'm going to get to some questions that I've been starring over in the chat. If anybody has a question that they would like me to get on panel here, please put it in the chat now, and I'll star them, and I'll try and do a quick little rapid-fire question section at the end of the show here. But we're going to bring up Brian J. He's been sitting down here patiently waiting. Brian, how are you doing, man?
Doing very well, thanks.
Good. And you got audio tonight. That's awesome.
I do. Yes. I'm not dumb this morning or today, so that's good. Just want to say thanks everybody for bringing attention to this, and Christina, congratulations.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, it's really it's such a topic that everybody kind of dances around sometimes, and the I'm too cool or it's too hot or whatever it is, but it's not going to work if it's not on you.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to think. But somebody commented in there, I just want to be quick about it, but somebody commented about having pockets in life jackets, and that's something I've always really, looked for. In mine, especially when I do solo trips or, do small emergency kits. I've got the mini, fire starter. I've got, hand warmers. I've got, just some basic stuff that if I dumped and lost stuff, I'm not helpless. An extra knife and just some basic things. Like I said, hand warmers. If your hands get cold, you can warm it up. Little fire kit to get started, and just things like that. So that's always for me something they always kind of consider for keeping it on you. And then it's like a tool.
Perfect.
Not like I'm a tool too, but that's a whole different.
I'm still really impressed by what Marty said about considering PFD to be part of the uniform, the paddling uniform, right? So many of us that are into the backcountry are, we think nothing of wearing the Fjall Ravens that are worth $180. Why? Because they look the part, right? Well, it's like the backcountry uniform. The quick dry pants. The wicking T-shirt, and how about a PFD, right? So,
I heard, Dennis. I heard you didn't wear pants all the time in the backcountry.
Well, you know what? We won't get into that. I'm not wearing pants right now, right? But waist up, people. Waist up. So, yeah.
And I just commented earlier too, like paddling the Alberta rivers now, like we do the North Saskatchewan River. We've been pulled over a couple times by Edmonton Police Service. In the canoe, and he said we're speeding, but we weren't. But they come over and they check, right? And the first one, we didn't have a canoe at the time, so we were in a rental, and they know that rental company provides all the safety gear that's required for that. But when we were in our own canoe, they came over and they're in their Sea-Doo kind of things, and hey, we see you're in your life jackets, but have you got this other stuff? And it's like, have a good day. It's good to see you out on the water and being safe, and you have all your kit with you. But that's happened a couple times.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting in the Bow River in Alberta, around Calgary. There's a mandatory in the municipality of Calgary. There's a mandatory wear of life jackets, and it's a bylaw. So that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure that Edmonton would carry that, but they might. Like I said, they wanted to see that we had them. They're glad to see we had them on. But I don't know whether it's like in Ontario where it's at.
Yep. Christina?
There's a bylaw in Edmonton that people have to. So is that an option for Ontario, or is
Calgary?
It have to be federal?
It's in Calgary, exactly, Christina. And I had to get my head around it, and I talked to the Calgary guys, and they sent me everything. And they have a bylaw in the province that allows the municipality to put that bylaw in place. And even though it's a federal law, and that's what I said, it's water, it's federal water, but apparently that water in Calgary belongs to Calgary. It's not belongs to the country.
Huh.
Don't ask me. I've tried to get through it. Don't ask me why. But it is amazing that they have that mandatory law. Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
I'll back out, but congratulations,
Brian.
Christina, again, and thanks everybody. And Emma says hi.
Thank you.
Right, thanks for coming on, man. Great to see you.
Okay, take care.
Cheers. That's awesome. You know what? We've had a lot of questions going through the chat tonight. There, we're at about 10 minutes before the end of the show. So how about if we do a few rapid fire questions? Are you all up kind of for that there?
Sure.
And these are questions that have been coming through, and Christina just mentioned one of the questions in the chat, or that she's seen earlier in the chat, but no, in our private chat here.
Oh,
but you know what? I've had that marked since almost probably the 15 or 20 minute mark of the show. So for the end of the show. So Ontario Camping Couple are asking, Sergeant Moffat, have you seen more fatalities in canoes versus motorcraft since COVID?
So great question. And yes, unfortunately. So let me just get the statistic here for last year. So 2022, this is the way it panned out, was 7 fatalities in a canoe, 5 fatalities in a kayak, 1 on a kneeboard, and then the rest. So we had 29 fatalities in 2022, marine fatalities. And so that is what, that's 12, 13 out of the 29 have been in canoes and kayaks. So it's a big part. Every year is the same thing. It's a big part of that the statistics is the canoes and kayaks, because they and Michelle can totally talk about this, but the center of gravity, right? People are, you're in any kind of waves. It's hard to stay afloat. So, going out in 30 knot winds on Lake Erie, not smart, right?
Yeah, crazy. All right, we'll move on to the next one here from Ian Kemp from Facebook, actually. What about overloading a canoe as a safety issue? Seen this many times. This kind of goes away from the PFDs, but the show was kind of based on kind of boater safety as well. So anybody to take this one?
Michelle, you want this one?
Well, I feel like that would, that's about being prepared and understanding your vessel and what the constraints of it might be. And even to speak to what Dave just said about your center of gravity, you fully load a boat and you sit on top of 3 canoe packs above everybody else, then for sure you're at an added risk. So, I mean, whether or not that comes also into educating people by either taking courses or if they're renting stuff that outfitters are passing on safety tips and stuff, because we do see it far too often, and it tends to be folks that are not as experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In keeping with this question, though, like I know boats, all vessels come with weight ratings, right? Safe weight ratings. I've seen, and I probably, even in my case, I weigh 230. Okay, so there's 230 pounds of the rating gone there. My buddies call my backpack Big Red for a reason. That thing could be 70 to 90 pounds depending on the trip, right? And then you throw a dog into the mix, and then your camera gear in our case, and if you're paddling a tandem canoe, you got the weight of your buddy, a food barrel. I think in a lot of, in a lot of cases, the weight can go over the rating quite quickly, because you would think a canoe would hold more than what they rate it for in some cases. So is there's obviously a safety issue there, because them ratings are there for a reason, correct?
So are these, so I'm thinking about the motorboat world, that they have capacity plates.
Yes.
And they talk about number of people, weight rating, etc. And believe it or not, there is no charge for a capacity plate. So if someone exceeds the capacity plate, we can't lay a very specific charge on that. However, what we see all the time is, a 14-foot tin boat, you see 6 guys going out fishing, loaded with gear, and the freeboard is, basically the distance between the water and the gunnel is like that. So any vessel that comes by with a wave, you're going to capsize the vessel. So in our world, that would be an unsafe vessel or a careless operation of a vessel. So there are charges that we can lay to kind of get people to, to make them smarten up a little, but there's no specific vessel. So, but are there actually capacity plates on canoes?
I believe there is weight capacity on canoes.
But they're not always displayed in canoes. It would be more if you were to go on a website as a consumer to learn about the canoe you want to go. I have to look at what the wording is, but they'll have and they do it in canoes and stand-up boards too, like the recommended weight load.
I believe my Novacraft has a weight capacity stamped right on the plate, on the identification plate on the inside.
The capacity plate.
Yeah. So very interesting. Very interesting. Alrighty. Let's John from Lost Lakes is saying, should swimmers need to wear a PFD for some of the same risks discussed? What do you see as the difference versus a canoeist besides the immersion being voluntary? I think that's kind of directed at you, Dave.
I want someone else to answer this.
I think what he's asking is
I think he's answering his question and his question with the voluntary, right? Dave said part of it was the shock of entering the water unexpectedly.
And that's the biggest piece of why people are getting the positions they're in, because it is a involuntary action where you get the gasp, you might ingest water. Apparently, it's a liter of water is all that it needs to go into your air pipe, and then the heart rate and the breathing, etc. So we'll never see anything mandated for swimmers ever, but swimmers should, when they're swimming across the shoreline, they should know what their skills are to get there, right?
Right. Excellent. Okay, and then Sue Leon saying, we kind of covered this a little bit, but how many drowning victims were wearing life jackets when they found a body?
Yeah, so if we have 88% of our fatalities were not wearing life jackets, then our stats say, our 12% were. So, in unfortunate situations where they're doing everything they can do, we had an occurrence where someone, they capsized the vessel, they're wearing life jackets, but the wind was pushing. It was in a Great Lake, and the wind was going the wrong direction. And he was eventually found 21 nautical miles offshore, right? So, wow. And that's cold water, right? Great Lakes, cold water. So, there's lots of, there's not lots, there's those unfortunate tragedies that happen, and like whitewater where people get pinned in the water, and just some bad situations that they try their best to wear everything, get all the equipment they need to be safe, and the sport they were in, just the circumstances of the sport or the occurrence or the wind direction, the weather, etc., has put them to that hypothermia stage or that drowning stage, right? And they're wearing the equipment. So it's very small. So sorry, 85, what did I say, 85? 88. So yeah, 12% of them are people that actually were wearing life jackets. Very small amount.
Okay, excellent. We're going to back up one question or two questions here. Wilderness Canoe Association says most canoes have data plates, but usually they do not state a capacity. So thanks for adding that. That's good to know. Two more questions here, and then we will probably wrap the show up. Marty, who was on a few moments ago there, said, why is it that we didn't need a law for people to start wearing helmets while cycling, but we may need a law to make people wear life jackets?
Sorry, guys, I'm talking a lot here.
No, that's fine.
That's good. We're learning.
I equate this as well to, and Michelle said it, the coolness factor, right? We're trying to make PFDs cool. Think about when you snow ski, 99% of the people on the hill right now are wearing helmets. That wasn't like that 10 years ago at all. And we're trying to push that coolness factor for life jackets because now it's more accepted. More people are wearing them. More people are saying, well, why wouldn't you wear one? Like, wear it, Like, I know that everyone, when I'm on a boat, everyone on that boat's going to wear a life jacket because I'm going to ask them to wear it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need we need more influencers like yourself to push the media, to push messages to college associations. And I read one question was how, people on this channel right now, most of them are the converted, and we need to get a hold of the people that aren't, and maybe get a hold of those communities that don't get up north a lot, and they leave Toronto and they think it's a great time to fish, and tragedy happens. Let's start talking to those people to say life jackets are a good idea and life jackets are cool, so wear them, right?
Mm-hmm. Dave, go ahead, Michelle.
So as a collective of influencers with channels here, maybe this is the group that needs to come up with cool tagline and the marketing campaign, and not solely rely on the manufacturers and the organizations like the ones we represent. And
yeah, Christina.
Yeah, I think it's also up to us, some of us, to hold people accountable. And like Dave said, right? Like there are a lot of people that I won't follow on social media because of not wearing a PFD or not being safe when they're out on trips. I've had quite a lot of messages over the past week since announcing the award and all that stuff, and people saying the same thing. I'm not going to follow people. It's not just social media people. It's not just YouTubers. There are outfitters out there that are posting on social media on a regular basis, and I'm not naming anybody, but you guys have all seen them, and people are purchasing their gear and they're supporting them and they're setting a bad example. And I know it's not illegal, right? But there are kids out there and they're watching you, and you're renting boats from them, and you're giving them your money. Make a statement, say something. I do. There are a lot of people who don't speak to me that are YouTubers because of stuff that I've said to them, and said, hey, like you're out here by yourself, like you're posting these pictures. Like I have children watching me, and I know I do, and their parents have approached me. I've met some of them. I've become friends with some of their families, and I want them to go out and be safe. I don't want them to drown. And if I can save, like we said today, if we can save one person from drowning this year, then I feel like we've done something. But these vendors, they're marketing, they're on social every single day. They're posting pictures constantly, and their owners, their staff, they're promoting people that are not wearing PFDs. And somehow we need to find a way to get them to change that, because that will help change the whole thing, right from the top.
Yep.
It's
well
just the thought. Yeah.
We go to and we participate in these outdoor adventure shows and things of that sort. And they have a pool set up in the middle for demonstration's sake that is no farther than 20 feet away from people all the way around as you perform a rescue, and they're all wearing their PFDs when you're doing these exercises or demonstrations. So to me, that's the way we need to change people's thought pattern, is to lead by example. You know what? It's for me to tell my grandson to wear a life jacket and then not wear a life jacket myself, what kind of a message am I setting, right? So that's yeah. And one more here, and then I got one quick question. It's kind of a silly one, but we'll get that in a sec here. Sulian's asking, alcohol and or drugs plus no PFD. Are there more of these drownings than just no PFDs? So when drugs and alcohol are in play with no PFD, is there more stats?
Yeah, like I said, it's a very low number. It's a little more than 10%. It was more around the now this is any drinking whatsoever, right? Fishing, and they have a couple of beers while fishing, things like that. It's about a quarter of the fatalities have some kind of alcohol. So it's a very low number when, like, most of these fatalities are happening on beautiful days. They're out, they go fishing in the morning, it's dead calm, and then they don't return. And then the search goes on, and we find the boat and eventually the body, right? So, yeah, it's a very small number.
Mm-hmm. You know, before this show, I had somebody make a comment there in one of the socials saying, "Oh, Dennis is doing a controversial show tonight." I don't think this has been a controversial show at all. I think this has been a very educational. You know what? Answered a lot of my questions. I hope it answered a lot of questions for everybody else. But I said I had one silly question. I have a Springer Spaniel, weighs about 40. Well, she's a little chubby, so she's about 48 to 50 pounds now, right? And is there anything that says that you should have a PFD on your pet when you're paddling? Because I know for the most part, Molly's a good swimmer, but for the most part, I make her I put a PFD on her when we're paddling. Is there anybody ever heard of anything that's no mandates or anything for pets?
Michelle?
Not that I'm aware of. No,
we've seen them. There are companies that sell pet life jackets, and they have a little handle on top that you can kind of stow them around. And we've seen. So there's no law that says a baby that up to 9 kilograms has to wear a life jacket because they just don't make them. There's no Transport Canada approved life jacket for a baby. You can buy them. You know, I can't believe babies would be out there without a life jacket on, but I've seen some infants wear pet life jackets. So there's two sides there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know infants. I know when my grandson, back when I had a powerboat there a year and a half ago, my grandson, right, I had his life jacket had a little pull handle at the top. It had the part that goes through the crotch, right, like that. And for a kid who was like this in there, right, he didn't like it very much, but still, nonetheless, we made him wear it, right? So, yeah, that's it. Michelle?
Can I just say one quick thing that has nothing to do with pets?
Sure. Yeah.
Just you had said at the beginning of this, part of what prompted tonight's show was Christina's winning that award. And I just wanted to share really quickly that as a paddling community in a whole, I think we're doing a great job. I believe there were 10 awards handed out at the award ceremony last week. And of those 10, 3 were all paddling related recipients.
Excellent. That's excellent. It's really good that your association does that and recognizes excellence out there, you know what, for various reasons. So kudos to that, and keep up doing, you know what, Michelle, Dave, Christina, keep doing what you guys are doing. It's great to have advocates out there for safety on the water. I know I want to go home and I want to hug and kiss my wife and see my grandchildren and my children. You know what? I think that's good enough reason in itself right there. Yeah. So,
thank you for giving us this platform to be able to talk about it and to raise awareness and to let people kind of hear some more about it so they can make a more informed decision.
And to all of your listeners too, Dennis, I've been reading all the comments, excellent comments. Thank you to all of you for taking this seriously. And you know, every time you wear a life jacket and someone that doesn't sees you wear it, you just increase the coolness factor. So thank you for that.
Be one of the cool kids. Be one of the cool kids. Now Outdoors, thank you for the new membership. You know what? I want to tell everybody in the chat too that this show quite literally came together in probably under 24 hours. Thanks to so much help from Christina and a bunch of other players that were not even mentioned in tonight's show, because there was a lot of email and messaging and chatting going on there to make this all happen. Michelle almost got voluntold that she was doing this by one individual, and Dave may have had to jump through a couple of hoops to get approval to be able to do this. And you know what? Thank you to all three of you and to everybody else that was in behind the scenes for making this show happen, because it did come together quite quickly, and I wanted it to be fresh on the heels of Camper Christina receiving this award. So, Christina, thanks for sharing your Tuesday and all the help. Dave, thank you for sharing your Tuesday evening, as well as you, Michelle. And keep the message going, guys. It's good stuff.
Thanks, Dennis. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Just so everybody knows, too, I do have some links in the description down below to the CSBC, to Paddle Canada, to Camper Christina's channel and website and stuff like that. So by all means, if you want more information, but I'd say especially pay some special attention to the CSBC website, because I'll tell you, it is full of great information. I discovered that here in the last 24 hours, and I'm not done with that website yet. So that's a good thing. So thanks again, guys and gals. We'll talk to you. We'll see you in the green room here in a few moments. Alrighty, I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. Like I say, this come together really quick. I may have had to dance around on a bit of things, a few things here, but I really seen the importance of this. And as you know, I like to put together shows that are of interest to all of you as well as myself. Great time to do some learning. Just wanted to say that don't forget, next week there will not be a show. I am going to be going out doing a little bit of hot tenting in the blustery cold up in Algonquin Park at Mew Lake. So if anybody happens to be in the neighborhood at Mew Lake on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, pop on in. Just look around. You'll see my big burgundy truck right across from the warming hut or the warming tent. Come on over, say hello, bring me a beer. No, bring yourself a beverage, something warm, because they're calling for blustery cold weather. If you haven't already done so, please do smash that thumbs up button. It really helps us in the YouTube algorithm world. And if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button. Anyways, we'll see you all in 2 weeks for our February 14th Valentine's Day Couples of the Backcountry episode. Going to be a fun evening. So with that being said, everybody, please have a good week, good 2 weeks, and please keep the adventures alive. Talk to you soon.